Hello YouTube, this is the Bucket coming at you today with the Russian TT-33 Tokarev. I'm going to talk to you about my grandpa's war prize here, but before I do that, I want to give credit where credit is due. When I picked up this firearm, I heard about this book by Cameron White. It's called Tokarev Pistols. I actually was brought onto this by Ian at Forgotten Weapons. Actually did a book review on this, and he talked about this particular firearm book, and I had my grandpa's Tokarev, so I ordered this. I think it was about 35 bucks. It's softbound, so it's not super expensive. And this is an amazing guide to people that want to know about Tokarev pistols. He is very detailed. You know, he starts off at the beginning of the book and he gives you a little bit of a history, but then he breaks it down to the Soviet, the Polish, the Hungarian, the Chinese, the Bulgarian, the Romanian, the Yugoslavian, North Korean, and gives you examples of almost every single type of Tokarev ever made. And they're beautiful color photos, and the history is great. And I like books like this because if you're not, you know, super into like the minutia of it and the specs and all of that other stuff, but you just like a cool, fun book to look through, to thumb through, and to be entertained with, this is great. And it gave me a ton of information about my firearm that I possess, and I want to go ahead and give him a shout out. So if you look at my previous video, again, link is in the description below, I told you a little bit about why this gun was important to me. Well, so I traded my brother, I get it home, and I know a little bit about Tokarevs. You know, when I first started getting into guns, you know, you could pick up surplus Tokarevs, you know, Bulgarian ones for like 180 bucks. And you know, this was, you know, a unique firearm to me because of the family history behind it. But I just assumed this was just like a North Korean one or, you know, a Chinese one or something to that effect, because my grandpa got it in Vietnam. And when I was watching a video on the Military Arms channel, the 5 best firearms of World War II, Matt kept talking about these cuts, these plunge cuts that you see in the top. Most just have the straight lines, and because those are easier to mill. These are specialized plunge cuts that they use in the Soviet Union and in Poland and nothing else. And so I was like, man, it's kind of unique. You just don't see those very often. And I get this puppy home and I take a look at it, and sure enough, I look right there. It says 1939, got the Tula star. And then I look at the slide, and again, this is a matching numbers 1939 Russian Tokarev. And because of our strained relationship with Russia over the years, these guns just don't get imported to the United States very often. And in the book, he talks about a couple of examples, some that have a safety right here that mar the date. And they come in only 2 times that he references in the books, in very limited numbers. Now, ironically enough, they have a better relationship with the Canadians, and I actually saw on a website that you could pick these up for 400 loonie, and I called them up and said, is there any way that I can get a hold of one? And they're like, nope, can't get them in the U.S. Partly because their importation laws don't require a safety. So if you're in Canada, lucky you can get one of these. But if you're in the United States, if you want to pick up a Russian Tokarev, very hard to do, and they are very pricey. So I was really pleasantly surprised. And when you start to think about, and this is the history teacher in me, 1939. Well, in 1939, the Soviets were actually in a non-aggression pact with the Nazis. And they sat down and they said, hey, I like Poland. Do you like Poland? And they're like, yeah, I like Poland. Well, why don't we both invade them together, and you take the eastern part and we'll take the western part, and everybody will be happy. And Stalin was like, heck yeah, more land for me. And they actually invaded Poland. Now, what a lot of people forget is the Russian Nagants were never, during World War II, stopped production. So there are years that they made more Nagants than they did Tokarevs. So these, though, were the most powerful firearms that they had and the most reliable and most war ready. So these went to frontline troops. So in all likelihood, this particular firearm went ahead and invaded Poland and took over Poland with the Nazis, in conjunction with the Nazis. And then after they invaded, Hitler said, well, I really don't like the Soviets, so let's go ahead and have Operation Barbarossa and invade Russia. So while I don't know if this was in Poland, chances are it was. And then as the Nazis kept pushing them back and back and back, and, you have the stand at Leningrad, and you have the stand at Stalingrad, and you have, all of that, this was probably a piece of that history. And those amazing stands ended up happening, and then they ended up starting to win, and they started to push the Germans back and ended up getting all of their country back, and then ended up invading into Germany. And you ended up with this gun that was probably in Germany. And what's really, really unique is shortly after the war, they stopped production of these pistols and started moving to the Makarov. But they didn't get rid of them. They ended up giving these as aid to different countries that were fighting for the communist cause. Now, I know this gun ended up in Vietnam. Now, did it fight in China? Did it fight in Korea? We don't know. We'll never know. But we know that this ended up in Vietnam. And my grandfather was gifted. Now, whether that is a, colloquialism for taking off of a dead Vietnamese soldier or not, I don't know. I never thought to ask my grandfather. My grandfather was a great man. I respected him very, very much. And he never really talked about any experiences he had in the war. Now, he told me that how he got his cribbage board out of a trash can, and that cribbage board I've taught my daughters how to play with. He would talk about those types of things, but we never really thought to ask him, about this particular firearm. And, now in retrospect, I should have asked some more questions for sure. Because if you notice, this gun is Parkerized. Now, he called that field blued. And I'd actually be interested to know. There was nothing in the book about this. Did the Vietnamese blue these? Because, the Parkerization, the bluing that they originally came with wouldn't hold up in the jungle conditions of Vietnam very well. So did the Vietnamese blue this, or did my grandfather have it Parkerized when he got a hold of it? Not 100% positive. I can tell you this left Vietnam in this condition. This is how it came home to the United States. And, again, collector value probably ruins it that it's Parkerized. Do I care? Not in the least bit, because this gun will never leave our family. So it's just, it is what it is, and I think it's super cool, and it adds to it. And I love the CCCP on the grips. At some point in time, we lost a little bit of the grip there, and that happens throughout history. But we're getting close to it's over 80 years old, and it's in remarkable condition. It's really neat when you look at these, because there's just little marks all over the gun, that that manufacturing marks. And the history of these are really neat, because when the Germans invaded, they actually took apart the Tula factory and moved it further east so they could keep producing these pistols. And obviously this was an important enough piece that they wanted North Vietnam to win and be a communist nation. So they sent these to serve the Vietnamese as well. It came with a magazine, actually has a Russian magazine. The magazine does not match to the gun, which would have been cool, but again, it doesn't matter. This is how it came home to us. And the history of everything that this gun has to say is just so neat. And the fact that my grandfather helped me learn how to shoot with guns like this. And if you look at my thumbnail at the beginning of all my videos, there's a beautiful Colt 1908 that I learned with. And I've been holding off bringing this gun to you guys because I always end my series with a range review. And just this week, I ended up picking up 3 boxes of 7.65, 7.62 by 25, the Tokarev round. And this is actually, this is the same dimensionally as the 30 Mauser, but the Soviets were like, that's not quite hot enough for us, so we want a super, super hot round. So you can actually shoot 30 Mauser through this. You are not recommended to shoot Tokarev ammo through a Mauser. That'll gum up your broom handle, your C96 real quick. But this is going to work for us. I won't run the I'm not going to run surplus ammo through this. The family history of this gun is too much. I'm not saying to you that you shouldn't run it. If you clean your gun right after shooting surplus ammo, that corrosiveness probably is not going to affect your gun. But this just has too much history and it's too much of a family heirloom that I'm not going to risk running corrosive stuff through it. But for the purpose of all of you guys, I'm going to go ahead and be running ammo through this beautiful gun and show you how she shoots. I'm looking forward to doing the range review because I've actually had some requests that, hey, you never showed us any range time with the CMP. So me and the Goat Whisperer, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this through its paces, put the 1911 through its paces, because again, this is a lot like a 1911, and we're just going to see what we think about each firearm, show you how they shoot, show you how they do, and then in that video, I'm going to go ahead, I'll take her apart, I'll field strip her, I'll show you how all the internals work and some of the neat features that make this different and unique from a 1911. Some would say better, and we'll get into all that tear down when I go ahead and get you that range review video. Thank you so much for taking the time to just walk through the history of this particular firearm with me, and I really enjoy all your comments. The likes are really appreciated. Share this with anybody that you think just would be tickled about that history. Mac doesn't have a Soviet one, so share it with him and let him know that I have one. And let's see if we can get this to Brandon Herrera, the AK guy, because I think he'd be super interested in the Soviet Tokarev, and maybe we'll get him to drool over this beautiful, beautiful piece of history. You stay classy, YouTube. Little baby bucket, do you want to live in California?
No.
Why?
Because I'm not a compliment.